How are y'all doing?
We're good. Where is everybody? Where are the main heavy hitters in this thing?
Sorry, I was late. I was in another meeting and they kept talking, and so I finally had to tell them bye. But we're here. We're good.
All right.
But I will tell you, Drew has a wealth of information as well. So don't have any qualms with asking him questions either.
Yeah, yeah. So it's been fun. Like last week, we were starting to get stuff last week. We had a whole plan of stuff we were going to be doing with and then nothing went to plan, plan last week, which is funny. I grew up in the north, so I'm used to the snow and I'm used to the cold, but Texas is definitely not. And having our power would come on for like 15 seconds at a time and then go off. And I finally disconnected all our mains and put on our generators, but then everybody bought up all the gas, so I ran out of gas. I was like, oh my god, it was interesting.
Nice. Hey, I will let everyone know just up front. I will have to step away in like 20 minutes, just for like 15 minutes, and then I'll be right back. So I'll see if Drew doesn't mind kind of leading discussion just
No,
for
I'll try to help where I can.
that little bit while I'm away. But just to kind of get everything started, who's first on the question board? Let's see. I see Sarah. You wanna just kind of jump in?
Yeah. So I'm an industrial designer, and my design collective is trying to do like plywood folding furniture with live hinges or let joints. You know what that is? I can share my screen and show a picture, but I see that the host has designed.
Yeah, a lot of your live hinges are going to be like laser, so it'd be interested to see that on a CNC actually.
Yeah, so we've been doing lots of prototypes on our laser cutter, but obviously we need like a lot bigger dimensions for our furniture. So that's why we got one of these.
Nice.
So
yeah, and you'll be able to do that actually well. So if you see up in the corner up here in the back of the second floor, I have big 150 watt CO2 lasers up there.
Mm-hmm.
So that you can see all my horrible duct taped exhausting system and everything else. But yeah, I've got a whole floor of big lasers, and I've done some live hinges for different things with the lasers, but you can't actually do them. And there's a bunch of people posting them with the Maslov. So let me try to roll over to my Maslov area. Hang on. I've got my Zoom on a card here.
That's handy. I feel like I'm live on your
actually use the Facebook Live because the camera actually is really the Facebook portal, which the camera is actually perfect for Zoom because it follows you around like a camera person.
Wow.
And it's really good.
Oh, fancy.
Yeah, and so and then I have it on a medical card. I bought a ventilator cart, so if I get COVID or if I need a Zoom meeting, I have both. We're good.
Smart. Yeah, so we were trying it out. The issues we ran into is that like there's so many slits and it will cut like the one slit. It will like do one layer of the one slit and then another and then another until it's all done, which takes a really long time. I was wondering if there's a way to just do like one layer of each, the whole.
Yeah. What design software are you using?
I was using Illustrator, but I'm happy to use other design softwares.
No, not design software. What CAM software? How are you generating your G code?
With
Makerverse?
Yeah.
No, you'll need the NC. Are you using easel?
No, she's not using. I think she's just using Illustrator and taking that straight to Makerverse.
Yeah. In an SVG file.
Do we have a post processor in Makerverse though? So what it is your tool paths are massively inefficient. So you are in a scenario where software will help you. So Fusion 360, vCarve desktop. There's a couple other ones. Those are the two that I use the most. And there's also, I'll have to get on the owners group to find the link. There are also some online toolpath optimization tools. And so essentially, the way that your G code is currently being rendered is in a subroutine manner. It is interpreting every path as like a small job within the job, and
Yeah.
then it is finishing everything before it moves. And so you need to be more of like a, this is not the proper term, but like in video, it's called like interlacing, where it does everything that you see first, and then it goes back and it does the next layer. Very similar like 3D printing. And there are post-processor settings in Fusion 360 as well as vCarve that will just let you generate your G code on the first pass that way. But there are also like G code optimizers that will look at your Z height in the G code, and then it'll allow you to like strip those layers out and reorder your passes. So ultimately, that's what needs to happen. Another thing, I'm just kind of curious, prying a little bit, so I apologize. What kind of bit are you using?
I think it's somebody else set up the router, so this was my job to come on here. I think it's an 1/8 inch.
Okay. Is it a flat end mill? Like it looks like a drill bit?
I think it's flat at the end. Yeah.
Okay. What you may want to look into for a live hinge is it's called a sign maker's bit. And they're
Okay.
really awesome, and they will let you cut faster. So it's a 15-degree taper, and it just looks like pretty much just looks like a really sharp nail. But it has a very small taper that goes up the entire length of the bit, and it will allow you to do the things that you're doing at a much faster feed rate.
Great. Okay, so sounds like I needed to get some post-processing. Is there like any forms or people that have this?
So if
Look
you
at?
were to get, so we have the Facebook group, and I don't know if you're on Facebook.
Oh, I
Um,
haven't been on that group. I'll get on there.
There's the Maker Made CNC owners group, and you can run a search in that group for G code, and there is a couple of people have posted and talked about it, and it's an online G code optimizer. And then so like you'll go to the site and it'll ask you for your .nc file, and then you upload it, and it'll actually show you all of the paths that the router makes, and it'll allow you to kind of modify when it does what to give you an opportunity to kind of make it more in line. Because like
Nice.
a lot of times with the free software, the tool paths are very random. So like some people will make a sign where it's going to cut this circle out, and then it's going to cut out the outer diameter of the sign. And then sometimes your G code cuts the outer diameter before it cuts all the pieces out of the middle, and then things just are less awesome than you wanted them to be. So
Less awesome. Yes.
the G code optimizers will definitely allow you to customize the order of operations.
Yeah.
And if you're going to be using lasers, and I don't know if I'll be using 3D printers for any parts too, like I'm getting our guys to use Fusion 360 for a lot of things, just because you can actually set toolpaths for laser, plasma, mills. You can do there's a lot of things you can do in there. So I know if Illustrator is easy for laser as far as creating SVGs, but if you use Fusion 360 is great if you just want to be able to switch between machines and not have to change platform. It makes it really easy. And there's educational licenses and other things like that.
And if you are, I assume you're a student.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that you can get a Fusion 360 license for free if you have a .edu email address.
You
Yeah.
can.
That's
Yeah. That's a good reason about having student interns.
Yeah, I'm taking advantage of all the free stuff right now before it's too late. Okay, that's great. Maybe, and I have one other question, maybe this will be resolved, but it does like little tabs on every cut, so because it
Yep.
thinks each one is a
That is going to be in your actual G code creation. So that's again a post processor setting. Some G code creation will automatically place tabs on a through cut, but where you're doing a live hinge, you don't actually have the risk of a piece like falling out. So that would be an override. Like if you're using easel, there's just like a little checkbox that says use tabs, like yes or no. Same with like Carbide Create and some of the other applications. So I would just say whoever is generating the G code, just to look for that tabs option and make sure that it's turned off for those tool paths. And then you won't have those little like remaining tabs at the back.
Okay, so is there an option to do no tabs on the live hinge cuts, but there is tabs on like the outside?
Yep. So
Okay.
what you want to do is, and this is going to be more for you in Illustrator, is to be able to segment which sections have tabs and which do not. You need to make sure that all of your paths are in separate layers. Because if they're in the same layer, when you bring them in to create the G code, then they are all part of the same path structure. But if you have them as separate layers, then you can target them individually when you go to create the G code, and then that will allow you to turn tabs on for some and off for others.
Well, that's smart. Okay, so I would do that in Illustrator and then take it into Fusion 360.
Correct. Yep. The other thing too is make sure anytime that you're doing paths, so a path by default has a inner and outer bound of the path in Illustrator, just because that's how vector-based stuff works. So before you save it as an SVG, so that you can bring it in as a toolpath, make sure that you hit like I'm on a Mac, so Command A or Control A. Just select everything that's on your artboard and then go up and hit selection and then expand. And then what that'll do is that'll convert everything to single path instead of having the inner and outer bound. That way, when you do create your G code, it interprets everything as one line and not as a like stroke with a width value.
Okay, that's smart. That's helpful. I think that's all I need. Thanks so much.
Perfect, no problem. Who's next? Mike. Looks like we got Mike.
Actually, Randy needs some stuff. I'm just watching. You go to Randy.
Okay, Randy. What you got? Looks like you're muted, sir.
Okay. I thought I could push the space bar and talk. So yeah, I had put a question at the on the chat about I'm very sorry that I hoped I'd get further along so I could ask, some intelligent questions. I literally unboxed my router this morning. So I was attempting to do my very first calibration today and started that process about 15 minutes before this web went live. My first question is, when I logged into Makerverse and I finally got it to read everything, the y-axis in the machine position had a really high number in it. And I had the sled set, dead center on my wasteboard. I thought maybe there'd be a way to zero that number out in the machine position, but I couldn't seem to do that.
Yeah, there should be a set home button. Now, when you ran this, when you pulled it up, did it launch the Oh, well, let's start with this. What Makerverse version are you on? Are you on 1.1.2 or 1.0.6? It should say at the very top.
Oh, it's 1.0.6.
All right, perfect. So in 1.0.6, in the upper right-hand corner, there is a button that says set home or declare home.
Yep.
It should be near the unlock button. So right after you hit unlock, if you already have manually set your sled to the middle of your wasteboard, if you hit that set home button, that is what will declare everything as 000.
Okay, and I did try that, and it didn't change the y-axis.
Okay.
Everything else went to 0, but not the y.
Have you jogged the machine any?
I tried to jog it, and it went into, I guess, what you call a runaway mode, moving diagonally down to the right. So the left motor was running, but the right motor was not.
Okay. So what I would do is and just visually looking at your machine, it looks like you did manually reset back to 0.
Yeah, close. I didn't quite get it exactly centered, but it's pretty close.
So if you have an issue where pressing the set home button isn't properly doing what it's supposed to do, it sounds like the control board is not receiving a clean signal from all of the motor encoders. So I would say to unplug and reseat your motor connections. More than likely, because usually on a runaway, both the X and Y, the left and right motors will run. So it seems like the control board is not getting an active response from the encoder on your right motor. So I would check, just unplug and reseat on both the motor and the control board side. And I know that sounds like the worst response ever, but very small things, very small things like that usually lead to success.
Okay.
And troubleshooting like that.
Well, it sounds like my first thoughts were the set home and, should have done what I thought it should have done. I'll walk through those steps. Matter of fact, I'll probably mute and do it so you don't hear the motors running, and I'll try that.
Hey,
Perfect.
Randy, just real quick, the plugs on those, the plugs on the board and the plugs on the motors, they're kind of funky plugs. One of the things you need to make sure is that you plugged it in all the way. I've seen a lot of posts and stuff. I've talked to a lot of people, tried to help them on these same issues. And what they found was when they put it in, they thought it was all the way in, right?
Mhm.
But it wasn't, and it didn't click. So then they went in and they pushed it, and heck, it went in another, 1/8 of an inch or whatever. So check to make sure that they're pushed in and plugged in all the way. That tends to be one of the biggest issues I've found.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. And there is that extra little snap. They go pretty deep into the motors. One thing we've actually had a couple users started, and it has worked really well for them, just because the motors do see a little bit of vibration, and some of that can cause trouble over time. We've had some users now they'll snap that in there, and once they confirm that everything is seated properly, they'll put like just a little dollop of hot glue on there, and it'll seal that connection, and it'll really give them a long-term connection that doesn't become an issue over time.
I'm with you. I hot glue everything with that stuff. And even if you look at my friends that are like, oh, well, I'm like, look at your commercial products you buy, or even big companies do it. It works well. And you can always heat it a little bit to get it out there if you want to. It's super easy. It's the best way to do it.
Awesome.
All right. Well, I will try that. Thank you very much. And then when I get back, I got a question about my frame setup. Somebody pointed out that they think my top board is too far out. I didn't follow the standard frame setup.
Yeah,
But-
it does. It just visually looking, it does look pretty far. I think the actual measurement is 5 1/4 or 5.5 inches.
I got 5. When I measure from the wasteboard, and tell me if my thinking here is right. When I measure from the wasteboard to the chain at the sled, and from the wasteboard to the chain further out, it stays 5 1/4 inches the whole way.
As long as you're even, you'll be fine. And if
Okay.
you're sitting on the wasteboard right now, then you know, obviously you put a piece of 3/4 inch material, your ring height will go down a little bit just because your sled's going to come off the surface of your wasteboard. So it shouldn't be a major issue. The biggest thing that you're going to want to monitor is that chain angle when you do have your cut material on there, because if that top beam does stick out too far, then you'll get points where your sled will start to lift off the surface as you get further away, as well as closer to the top. So that would be something that I would monitor. I would say grab a sheet of like 3/4 inch or 1/2 inch or whatever material thickness that you plan on cutting the most. Throw it on your waste surface, screw it down, and then jog the sled around to a bunch of different locations, and then just see if you get any lifting on the sled, and then
Okay.
that'll let you know if you need to make any adjustments to your ring height or even bring your top beam back a little bit. But that's really what that measurement is based off of.
Thank you.
To maintain a good angle on the chain.
Well, one of the reasons I built my frame the way I did is I could work with fairly thick stock. I work with live edge slabs. I might be working on something as thick as 4, 5, 6 inches thick. So I wanted to make my thread so that top beam, right now it's thick, but I thought I might have to be able to make an adjustment and be able to bring it out for very thick stock.
No, absolutely. That is a great use case and reason for that design. So I would not, like I said, I would not have any issues with that. I would just monitor your chain angle and make sure that you are adjusting your ring height as you have variance in your cut material, just so that you don't get any walking or deflection in your bit during your cut that would cause it to kind of like wallow out the hole. But I think that's great. I think that is a great way to modify a design to suit your specific use case. And I do not think you'll see any problems at all if you're cutting things that are 5 inches thick.
Hey, Randy, one thing to kind of mirror what Chris was saying, at the top of your board, if your ring height is set too high or that top board is out, your sled could actually go up and then it kind of lifts off a little bit. You'll see the exact opposite if it's all the way at the bottom. What it'll do is it'll go to the bottom, and when a cut starts going up, it'll lift the bottom of the sled up. So the sled will tilt forward, and up at the top, the sled will tilt backwards. So, I mean, that's an awesome design you got there. That is really neat. I think you're just going to have to find that sweet spot in between both of those, right?
One thing to notice too is that some people, the old manual, it shows, let's see if I can show you up here. See how far away on this one the nail is that's holding the chain?
Yeah.
And so it's at the bottom, and it's for the 12 inches or whatever way. On these, you'll see it's at the top, and it's a lot closer. That makes a huge difference with the M2s if you're running an M2. And I think that the documentation.
I think that's how I think I set mine up. I followed that one right there. 6
Perfect,
inches
okay.
in, 1 inch down.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, good. Because some of the old documentation had it the other way, and so
Awesome.
perfect.
I
Hey,
did.
real quick, guys, I do need to step away for probably like 15 minutes or so. So I'll kind of lean on Drew to kind of lead discussion. But it also looks like Casey's got quite a bit of knowledge on the topics as well. So I'm going to step away. I'll come right back, but please, continue the conversation, and anyone that has questions, just kind of lob them out there.
Oh, in the chat, Mike, I'm on a thing. I'm sure other people have chat. I can see the chat messages, but typing on this tablet would be a pain. So I have an oral cart. But yeah, I'll try to help where I can. I mean, obviously, there's some other people here too that definitely help too. So I don't know if there's other questions or anything. Oh, wait, can anybody hear me? Yeah.
Yeah, somebody was asking about, it looks like, Mike, you were asking about M2 upgrade kits and about the stock of the M2?
That I would not know. That's something Drew would know, or Chris would know when he gets back. He'll be back when he gets back in a few minutes. He'll be able to answer that one.
Yeah. What was the question again?
The inventory of the stock for.
Oh, yeah. We just got it. We just got notification a few days ago that it's already here. So we should have it by the end of the month.
They're really fast about getting stuff. I've been impressed. Every time we've ordered stuff, even if it's drop shipped directly from their suppliers over in China, it's fast. We've got one of my orders for one of these other ones. So I've got a bunch of them over here. Oh, wait, there is. Wait, not that one. That one. It came. I haven't built any of that one yet. I finished building that one yet, but it got here quick. It was about like a week or so. But,
Anybody else have any frame design issues, assembly issues, cut problems, G-code setup issues, anything like that? General questions?
Anybody doing some cool projects? This is another fun thing too. I know they're going to start another group that's going to be like for people. This is going to be for like Q&A and helping people out with issues. But they're going to start another one, which will be really neat. That Drew's working on, the other Drew, that they're going to be doing for people just to talk about different projects, for users just to get together and kind of collaborate on things. And like for me right now, like I started training the guys. I have some new guys. I was training on some stuff, training on the Maslow's. We get started on the Maslow's, and then we've just had 2 weeks of absolute craziness. And so I had a chance to that, but that's one of the things. Like other two, like this may be good for if you have a shop and you're trying to train people and stuff like that. Like I've had my team getting on these meetings just so they could learn about the Maslow, and sometimes just even listen, because a lot of the issues that come up are pretty common, and so it's good to hear just things, and then that way when they start learning, they'll be like, oh yeah, I remember somebody talking about that. So they're also good for that. Casey, I really like your top board. My PVC pipe is sad because I like how you did yours, because I've been using PVC for this. It's because when I had extra PVC out in the back.
Hey Casey, where are you located at?
I'm in Houston, North Houston.
Okay, well, we got a little trouble, not trouble, but Mr. Luis Fernandez.
Uh-huh.
Yes, he's having some trouble. So, I think his frame might be off a little bit.
Yeah, I think we've been going back and forth with him a bit in Facebook, right?
Yes. And
Yeah,
I've been actually talking to him every day. I've been calling him every day, trying to. He didn't understand how the Z-axis, and I kind of showed him, and then it was just it was kind of hard.
Yeah, so he took a picture of this, and this is something I think everybody needs to see or needs to understand. But the picture from the side actually looks like his frame is twisted. Now, with the old software and the old setup, you could just set home in the center. It asks you to find the center of your board. You click set home, and that set the 0 for your entire machine and for your board.
Exactly.
With this new software, it's way more involved in the setup, but it's way more accurate too. So, I mean, with the edge calibration and then the precision calibration, people don't realize that it's not okay to have a lot of that slop that we had in the first version, right?
The first version, exactly. And that's the frame that him and his son built.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I've built my frames crooked before too, so that's okay. I built that frame crooked. I've built 4 of them now. So.
But that's fine. You have to do it yourself. That's how you learn,
Yeah, it happens even after you've done it a few times. It happens.
You're like, oh man, I got this. Gotta do it this way.
Yeah. So how'd it go in Houston? How'd y'all hold up?
We did all right over here. I mean, we had some areas downtown that lost some power, and some areas around I guess the subs that had some power outages, but all in all, we had water. I never lost power. We never lost water. We never lost gas. So for us, it was all right. It got cold as hell. We're not used to that, right? I had a
Out here. I mean, I'm in South Texas, and we lost power.
Yeah, I'm in San Antonio, and San Antonio was a shit show. Excuse my French, but it was a mess. And I grew up in Colorado. I grew up at 10,000 feet in Colorado, up and so I was used to this. I grew up, and so, but it's just interesting. Like we had no power, and then it was coming in. It was a mess, and they were shutting water off. And luckily, I'm kind of a survivalist, just so I have like water filters, I have generators, I have everything else, anyways. But but it was running around. My main goal is to keep all the pipes from freezing in my house and everything else, because 3 days without power and the inside of your house is below freezing. Your pipes are freezing. So I was running around torching all the faucets and just wrapping them. But we had no pipes freeze. All we needed was pipes busted. The 17 buildings out here, all their pipes busted, and we were the only buildings that didn't have any busted pipes or anything. So I was like, hey, but it took a week of running around nonstop.
Nice. The sun has been out. It's been so nice.
So I thought Mr. Mike Hill there, he had a question earlier. He had told us to go on to somebody else. I don't know if he still has a question for his build.
It's just I just see his question up here.
Anybody else have any questions or cool builds they're working on?
Sarah, I got a question for you then. So like what lasers are you all using for your projects?
Were you asking me, Sarah?
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to look at the model of our laser cutter.
What color is it?
No, it's blue.
Okay, so it's probably either an epilogue or a what do you call it? Can't think of the name right now, but I know what you're talking about. It's a pretty good size.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the bed's like 18 by 32 or something.
Cool.
Yeah, I get a lot of use out of that.
Yeah, they come in handy. Now, what's would be really cool is they're working some cool stuff for the Maslows right now. That would be really cool with lasers, and so
Yeah.
Chris can catch you up on that later. But it's they're doing some cool stuff with that too. So they incorporate both.
Yeah, I'm into it.
I've kind of got a question. I kind of jumped into this. I'm sorry, I haven't bought one yet. I'm about to buy one in a few weeks. Just out of curiosity, has anybody in here ever fooled with a vinyl cutter? And if so, what's the learning curve from the difference in using a vinyl cutter versus using a CNC machine?
It's a big difference. It's a big world. It's a complete different world. Yeah, you need I mean, it's kind of similar to an extent, but you have to learn. You need to learn your CAD software. You need to learn how to you need to tell basically a Cricut or a vinyl cutter knows basically what kind of material it is. You're cutting. And it knows what tool it needs to use. Of course, the Maslow any CNC is a little different. So you have to verify what tool you're using, how thick your material is, what material you're actually using as well. So you have to learn a little bit of CAD software and a little bit of design software. It's not too much of a difference, but you just have to be careful with which bit you're using and your feeds and speeds.
Let me ask y'all this. So on a vinyl cutter, if I have a 75, a 40, and a 60 blade, my machine automatically lets me know if I need to change out the blade. So in the software that y'all use for this, if like one cut uses one blade and the other cut uses the other blade, will it let you know, or is it all just depending on what you put in it is what it's going to use to cut?
what you put in and what you're going to use to cut. You have to tell it what bit it's going to use. And
You can set stop points, so you can set your files where you could change bits. So we've done that. We've got multiple bits in that. So what we'll do is basically you can either do 2 files, or you can set stop points where you can change the bits in there and do it that way. But so you're using like vinyl cards like this guy here, just a bit bigger than.
I have a flat. Well, I sold out about 2 years ago when all this stuff in Silhouette went down. I've had 2 flatbeds and I've had about 13 regular cutters. But I mean, I'm familiar with CNC because I used to work for a cabinet shop. But let's just be frank, their CNC machines $50,000-$60,000.
oh yeah, you ain't gonna get that here. You know,
No, I don't want it.
This guy takes 170 amps, 480, 170 amps. And so right now I have it unplugged. It's got a 7,000 pound counterweight. It's like, because it's a nightmare. It's just so expensive to run the damn thing. But yeah. So I'll tell you, if you're going to this, if you're used to CNC, stuff like that. So like I have a Crossfire, which is like the Maslow for plasma cutters. It's a pain to learn. It's their support, stuff like that. They're pretty good. They have some YouTube videos, stuff like that to kind of walk you through it. But for new people really wanting to learn and to get into stuff, the Maker Made does a really good job. Their support network, their Facebook page, they have. If you're wanting to learn, you have a lot of resources. They do a really good job. Like Chris is usually on here. Skiles, who's one of the co-founders and CTO, and he's actually one of the ones that does a lot of programming, the code, and everything else for this for Maker Made. And so you're interactive with not just the founders, but the engineers, everything. So unlike some of these guys, the Crossfire is great. I love the Crossfire, but it's definitely a much steeper learning curve. And then in some ways, you'll still have a little bit like with your Maslows, you're going to have CAD and CAM. So you're going to have to take, where it's like if you're doing your laser cutting, sometimes you'd use Illustrator or your vinyl using Illustrator, then take it into their software, which will usually do the CAM or the toolpath. With this, you basically have the same thing in a sense where you'll go from your design software to basically a CAM, or to in this situation you'll go to you may use CAM within like Fusion 360 and set the toolpath and anything on there, but then you'll go into Makerverse to actually control the machine. So
what does CAM do? Does it just trace the design?
It creates the toolpath and it creates the movements. It basically takes the design and creates the paths and how the machines are moved.
Okay.
So Kenneth, I just got a question for you. There are 2 types of material we're talking about here. You said vinyl, right?
Yeah.
So a CNC, the Maslow doesn't have a mount for a cut tool for vinyl. You're talking about soft material. It doesn't get cut with a rotating bit. It gets cut with a circular blade on a spring steel, right, to cut around a soft material. It doesn't use a conventional CNC bit to cut soft paper and thin vinyl material.
So one thing you can do is you can put a rolling blade in this, and I have done that for vinyl, and it was for a weird situation. So I didn't turn on the router, so I just left the router off, and you can get the rolling blade. And I've actually run it with a rolling blade before, and there was a reason.
I was just curious as to knowing your access like X, Y, and all them, and how to control them. Because with a flatbed, it's the controls are kind of, from what I'm understanding from people that have used it, it's kind of the same. The only difference is I don't have depth like you would on a piece of wood. It's just set to a pressure.
So that's the nice thing with vinyls. You will be kind of used to it. Like you're talking about the pressure. So you will. So you do basically have a Z-axis in essence. It's just pressure, and you're setting your pressure. So in this situation, you set your depths, and you want to be careful. Just like if you have too much pressure, you're going to cut through your backing on your vinyl, and so you don't want to with the CNCs. You don't want to go too deep on your first run. Some people will set it to where it just like jumps like a half inch or quarter inch or something like that. You want to go past, and you want to go slowly jump depth, so you're not trying to jump too deep at once, unless depending on the bits or anything else. So Yeah, there's some fundamentals that change. That will be this kind of they're come across, but it's just a little bit different use of those. And you could go on. I would recommend if you're gonna be looking to get one, go on to Makerverse, go onto the forums and stuff like that, and start playing around, learning the software, and start learning how to do some things with it. And what are you using? Are you used to Fusion 360, or are you used to any of the design tools, or what design tools have you been using before?
I use mainly Illustrator, and I mean I messed the stuff around like that, but the company I ordered my vinyl cutters from had a SVG software, and that's what a majority of anything that's really done to get the rendition of what the machine needs to cut off of. It just basically, it says, okay, this is black, this is white. What's black, it needs a trace around the outside of. What's white is the leftover material. So I mean, it's really like, it's pretty much like setting up a stencil, if you catch what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's just like lasers. Laser, you set your line colors, so you can set whether it's cut, engrave, or score, or things like that. And you set, but yeah, so it's a bit different than that. It's a bit different than that. In a sense, like so we use a lot of Fusion 360 for doing some of the design. There's some great free tools out there. What do you like? I don't know what you're using, Casey or Michael, or
Yeah, just you can just send us a message to support@makermade.com, and then we can get you going.
Okay.
We can send you all the information. So you can, there's different softwares. There's Easel, there's Carbide Create.
yeah. Easel's really good. Easel is like, if you want to learn, look at Easel. And Easel is a good way for you to start getting started and get
Easy,
going.
yeah, exactly. It's easy to start with, but if you really want to get into high tech and you really want to get into it, I recommend Fusion 360 to learn it. Don't use it, just start learning it, play with it. But if you want to start cutting, I recommend you using Easel. But it's really good to learn actually Fusion 360.
So some of you guys have, I guess, modified these things for plasma cutters too.
I want to. I'm gonna do my back. Because the thing is, and the nice thing is, all for a water bed, all I need to do is put a tray at the bottom. All the sparks will go down. We start a fire about once a week in this building, so at this point, it might as well.
So, is there any news on the laser that's supposed to come out for this? Is it going to be an attachment, or is it going to be directly attached along with the router?
It'd be attachment. I can tell. I know that part, but as far as the rest of it details, that would be Chris and the Maker Made team.
No, I was just wondering. I know that I looked up the company that they said that was making the laser. And it looks like a lot of them, the laser offsets the router, and it sits underneath the router on a lot of the other ones that they make it for.
Yeah, so basically you snap your tray in. So this is one of the lasers, and you take your router out. So I've been working on that. I've been testing some of these right now, actually. So yeah, you take your router out, and I have my mount sitting on my desk. So I'm just remaking a new mount. I actually was laser cutting some new mounts with instead of 3D printing them with my. This isn't actually this is a different one than the one they're probably going to go with. But yeah, it just sets in here. And the one that here, I'll go grab it real quick. If y'all want to ask some questions, I'll grab it real quick. I'll show you.
Hey, Randy, how'd everything turn out? You get it done?
Well, I got into a runaway mode again. I thought I did everything that Chris told me to do. So I've manually reset it to the center again. But I have, from experience, I know that if I plug it back in, it's going to, the motors are going to just continue to run. So is there something I can do in the control panel to stop that from happening?
Like they run completely?
So it started jogging, and it just wasn't jogging in the direction I had asked it to. I reset all the connections to all the motors. I hit the set home, and it didn't reset the Y axis. Everything else is zeroed out except the Y-axis.
Okay.
I tried jogging once again and it just started running away.
Hmm.
So
That's odd.
if I plug it in again right now, I have a feeling it's going to just run away again. As a matter of fact, I'll go ahead and plug it in. It's right there.
So Randy, just one more item you can probably try. Make sure your motor shield on your do board, make sure your motor shield is plugged in all the way to the Arduino board. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah,
You got
The
two
plugs.
Yeah, you
I
got
got the 3 plugs going into the Arduino board.
you got two boards in that white box, right?
Yeah.
The top one is your motor shield. It should have 3 heat sinks on it, and that's where your motors, right? That's
Okay.
your motor shield. The bottom one is your Arduino board. So
Okay.
just make sure they're plugged all the way in.
Yeah, make sure it's pushed in all the way. Yeah.
Okay. I say I got to take the case off, but yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah, just don't push too hard to where you break anything, but just make sure it's firmly seated, because I made that same mistake. I didn't have the same problems as you did. Mine acted more weird, but when I was the very first time I set this up, mine didn't come assembled it was supposed to, so I put it together and kind of squeezed them. After I mounted it, they were sitting like this, so one end wasn't all the way in, and I plugged them in, and everything started working. I haven't had a problem since.
I know this is one of the ones we're looking at, and I'll let them tell more detail. I don't know what I can disclose or not disclose. So, but I know I like the way that Chris is looking at this mounting. So basically, it would snap into your tray here. So this is one of the like prototypical mounts. But yeah, it's super simple. And these guys magnet on. So nice thick what bag is it? Snap it in, then you have your PWM. You have your controller that's then connected to your PWM port on your M2.
What are y'all using? Lightburn for that?
That's what I've been playing with right now is Lightburn, and so I really like Lightburn. You can also use what do you call it? Anyways, you can also use Makerverse, but I've been playing with Lightburn too because I like Lightburn. So that's what I use for a lot of my big lasers. And so I think it depends on the project you're doing. If you wanted to score something before you did cuts, or if you wanted to mix cuts with scores, I'd probably stick within the same program just so you don't have any issues with accidentally getting things out of alignment. But yeah.
But that's just you.
Yeah, you can export things to Lightburn.
Yeah. All right. Cool.
You can run it with Lightburn.
So you can run the Maslow with Lightburn?
You can. So I've got my Lightburn. Let's see what it's called. Sorry, we're not much down on the side right now. Give me a second here.
Maybe one of these weeks we can actually see it live.
Yeah, I just when Chris gets back and those guys, I'm sure they'll what do you call it? I think I'm not sure what the plan is on those pieces yet. So I don't know. Like I said, I don't know what I'm allowed to say or we're not allowed to say. So, but yeah, I think it's really cool. I think it makes it a great tool, and it's a good power laser. I mean, it's not like running a 130 watt laser or anything like that, but for what you need for doing scoring, and honestly, it's powerful enough where you can cut through some stuff. It may take multiple passes, but so far,
you'll be able to cut through thinner pieces of plywood, right? Through like real thin, like maybe like an 8.
Yeah, you could. And birch and stuff like that, you would. 8 watt. You may have to do a couple passes, but yeah, you could, and technically do it.
12 o'clock.
Depends. And one thing, if you want to get it going, so like one of them has an air assist you can attach, and so I'll use the air assist if you want to get more power out of them. A lot of time, what I'll do is I'll connect an air assist, and so and then connect it to the compressor, or just buy a fish tank blower. So for my big lasers, I just use the big commercial fish tank blowers for the air assists, and that will actually help you get more cutting power out of the lasers. It's giving you a hotter burn. Oh, Kenneth, you're muted.
Let me help. Let me understand this. The laser and the router are not going to be able to sit on the board at the same time.
No.
Okay.
Doesn't look like
All right.
But the nice thing with these is you can also modify them. So the one thing with Maker Made is, I mean, you could technically, if you want to, now you'd have to figure out how to calibrate it, but you could technically, one thing I'm looking at doing with mine is making a mount or designing a mount in a way where I can have both. Because I have my own, like I've laser cut my own. This is an acrylic, it's a little dusty right now, but it's an acrylic, for the Maker Made. So you can make your own and modify your own parts for these things. So that's kind of fun. Now they're really good at keeping the code. Like one thing I really like Chris is he's really good about making sure the code isn't just like all community based, so it's not all over the place. They're really good about making sure they have good quality control, which I think is perfect. So some parts of it aren't fully open source, not in the sense of not open source, but the sense of making sure there's good customer experience, which I think is a very important thing. So that's why I really like the Maker Made versus some of the other options out there, and especially versus like when you look at some of the Crossfires and other things, it's a lot harder to use versus or get up and going Maker Made.
Now, has anybody put a spindle motor on these?
Yes, wire shield ones. So I have a bunch of big wire chillers. So that's one of the ones. I have a wire chilled spindle that instead of air cooled, and you can, yes. And so I've got one, and I've got a big. I bought a couple of chillers off of it from a company that repairs electron microscopes. So let's see if I can get over here. So I've got a giant Haskris chiller that I was going to hook up to the, I don't know if you can see that, but maybe not, but I've got a big chiller over here that I was going to hook up to this guy. And so that, and I'm going to run a wire chill spindle through there. Because you have, with the M2, you have PWM output, so you can control the spindle, which makes it nice. Then you're not, with like the router, you just have to manually control the speed. And with the spindle, you can actually control it all through software.
So Kenneth, just
and it's quieter.
So Kenneth, just a quick, I guess, help me text, right? Just go on to the Maslow and Maker Made 2 has a CNC Facebook pages. And man, I'm telling you, I find on there, those guys, there's a lot of material, a lot of information in there. I would go in and I would sign up for the M2 CNC Facebook page and just read the posts. That's something that I do on a regular basis because you'd be surprised some of the stuff those people come up with.
Yeah, and don't get discouraged because there's a lot of people that that cannot get it and they're having issues, and a lot of it's user error. If there's something going on, it's because your frame is off some way, shape, or form. Once your frame is good to go and you have it all good, then you shouldn't have any problems. And of course, stuff breaks and stuff like that. But of course, all you got to send us is a email to support, and we'll handle it.
There's a lot of good people on the Facebook pages too that really will help you. There's a lot of good community members that will they're strong on it. I think Dale's still heavy on it. I haven't had a chance lately. We've just been trying to go so many different directions. But yeah, there's a lot of great people on there that will really help you out.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
Now, the original Maslow wasn't really a plunge. It was just a straight cut, correct?
It had Z-axis in its second iteration of the original Maslow. So the original Kickstarter Maslow had L brackets that connected the chain. And then there was a revision that added the Z-axis. And all it did was it had a motor on the micro adjustment knob of the rigid router. And then there was a later revision that added the ring cage assembly.
I think I saw one of my M1s around here somewhere. In my M1.
Yeah. And then the M2 is the Maker Made evolution of the Maslow by introducing the Do control board as well as the the new Z-axis assembly and router clamp that allows you to use kind of a broader range of routers.
Yeah, if you're really into making your own tools, making your own sleds, designing, putting in a lot of time, the old Maslow, it's not that bad. But the newer M2 version is set up ready to go. That's probably the best bet for a new user getting into CNC because it takes out a lot of those other factors and variables. That's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, I definitely go with an M2.
Yeah.
It's worth it. There's a huge difference, especially if you want to do like spindles and stuff like that. You need an M2 because then you have PWM controls on it.
Now, do y'all sell the mounts for the spindles, or is that something like the 3D print?
Oh, so we're working through this as kind of a supply chain thing. Currently, the upgrade kit comes with a 91 millimeter clamp that will accommodate the rigid 2022 router, and then the standard M2 complete kit comes with a 71 millimeter clamp that will accommodate like a Bosch Colt or a DeWalt 611P, some of those items. We're working on getting it to where those 91 millimeter clamps are also available on the regular M2 kit itself. That way, if you want to use a larger router with the M2, you can. But the DeWalt 611 is pretty much the weapon of choice for hobbyist CNCs. The Shapeoko, XPAR, Bob CNC, pretty much the who's who of desktop CNCs rely on that DeWalt 611. So it is a very capable router for what you're doing.
You definitely want the DeWalt. We the other ones we had a little with the rigids and stuff. We had the issue with some of the slippage. There's things that have changed now with M2 that make it a lot better. But we had the little clamp that would hold it was wore out on one of ours, and the new setup has been really good. And I have some what do you call it? I have some Shapos and stuff over there. Oh, they're all the way in the back. But I have Shapos and stuff back there. And honestly, they're now collecting dust. My Shapos don't get much use at all.
Me, I prefer the larger router, the 91 millimeter right off the bat. I like 2.25 horsepower. So I have a Bosch and I can run all the way up to a half-inch bit.
Oh, wow. Yeah. It's a good point.
So I build a lot of flat pack furniture like this,
Sure.
with knuckles and insets and everything else. I use a 1/4 inch bit on that. And it cuts my time in half instead of that 8-inch bit.
Well, you're doing pretty thick stuff too. You said you're doing like 5 inches thick, right?
No, that was Randy.
Oh, yeah.
But even with that rigid router, I mean your depth per pass on a 2-horse router is going to be pretty severe, and you can step up to a 1/2 inch bit if you really want to hog something out. So it's definitely a more capable router than the DeWalt, but even it's really just going to be based off of what projects you're wanting to do. It's also a more expensive router. So if you're trying to keep your costs down, I'd say the DeWalt 611 is about $100 router, and I think the rigid is pretty. What is it, like 175 or something like that for the rigid?
Yeah, I think it was 179 at Home Depot or something like that. But if you have military, like if you get at Home Depot, you can get 10% off, and Lowe's too. If you're a veteran, so it saves a little bit.
What's the price on the 2-horse Bosch?
I think I bought that as a full kit with the plunge and everything else. So I have the DeWalt they're talking about. I have the rigid, I have a Bauer, and I have the Bosch.
You sound like me.
I never, to be honest with you, once I switched to the Bosch, I never took it out. But I bought the Bosch as a kit, and it was $179. And that came with the plunge base and everything else. So, you know what? I've never went back to the DeWalt 611. I know people love them, but in my area, Houston here, the price of that thing has gone up. It is skyrocketing because everybody's buying them. And right now, you can't even find them
Yeah,
because
they're on back order.
yeah, it's so crazy. So I think it's just what everybody's saying here. It's your preference. I like a bigger motor so I can cut thin or thick. I can always adjust the RPM. I can go to a small 1/8 inch bit if I want, or I can go all the way up to a half. It just gives me more options. So
And I know the just option. The Bosch is great. I grew up kind of working construction, and DeWalt was king on the job site. So I'm kind of a DeWalt snob in some Milwaukee here and there. DeWalt makes a fixed based router very similar to the Bosch kit that comes with a plunge base and everything. And it fits in the 91 millimeter ring. The one big feature about that I really like is the power cord actually plugs into the side of the router body. So if it ever binds or anything, you can just grab it by the cord and rip it out of the side of the router, and it'll kill it. But that's just a random feature that me personally I like, and it makes it a little bit easier to like store and everything. But you can't go wrong with Bosch. You can't go wrong with DeWalt. The only thing that I would shy away from, just because their manufacturing quality has really gone down over the years, is the porter cable routers. They're just nowhere near as great as they used to be 5-6 years ago.
and I've had the same problem with rigid, so I quit buying rigid about a year ago. Slowly the quality's just gone downhill. But I like that, Chris, what you were talking about with the DeWalt that plugs into the side. That's pretty nice. I didn't know that did that. I'm gonna have to look into that.
One of the nice things you talked about was the spindle. So like I have chillers, so I've been really, because not only that, just noise. It's a lot quieter with the spindle. But a lot of the spindles you look at, so you don't, even if you don't have a chiller, they come with water pumps. So you can do ice buckets or whatever. But just water. But a lot of them comes with mounts. And so like I'm looking at this one's an 80 millimeter. And you're looking anywhere between like $200, $300 up to like $500, depending what you're looking at. But that's an 80 millimeter, and it comes with a mount that you could actually attach to the Maslow, to the sled. So
I think that's the one I was actually looking at the other day. I actually work for Amazon, so I think I saw it. Well,
yeah, it's really cool. Yeah, it looked like this. And there's one that Chris was looking at too. It was really nice that he was telling me about. So.
All right, well, I have a couple of Amazon questions, man. Not just joking.
So
Hey,
Randy there. Ask Randy if he went to check something and come back. Chris is back on here, so
oh, very good. So, and Casey, at your recommendation, I did check the boards. They were not seated, so I did press those together. And then I checked every connection to the motors, to the Arduino board. That's the right saying. And I'm in the Makerverse, and it still will not reset the Y-axis. It's still at a negative 114.99, and everything else is at 0.
Okay. Are you able to jog the machine now?
Am I able? Say that again.
Are you able to jog the machine?
When I tried it, it ran away again in a different direction this time, but it ran away.
How many steps do you have to send it?
Oh yeah. Are you in inches or millimeters?
Millimeters.
Okay, perfect.
We've
had some false positive runaways before where people have told it to go 100 inches thinking they were doing millimeters, and it took off.
It's set in millimeters, and it's set for 1 millimeter.
Oh wow, and it's running away on you. So are you on Mac or Windows?
Mac.
Okay, Mac. On the left-hand side, you'll see the Gerbil console, the little black text, old school terminal. When you
Yeah.
first connect your board, does it spit out like a stream of information, like a bunch of $ values?
Sure.
Okay, so you are getting active connection, and then you have the alarm to where you unlock, and then you press set home, and that should do it. Do you have, what are your, so on the lower, should be on the lower left, you have an M2, you have an M, oh, no.
I'm trying to move my screen around so I can kind of like follow along.
Yeah.
The screen.
So that the M2 widget itself is like an M2 widget that will tell you what values you have saved for distance between motors and motor offset and all of that. Do you have,
Yes.
what values do you have in there?
Okay. And this is something that probably should have started with. I mean, the height is 1,219 millimeters. The width is 2,438.4 millimeters. Distance between the motors, 2,978.4 millimeters. Motor offset. Yeah, motor offset is 463.
Okay, so you have gone through the calibration widget then, and
I have not.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is what I would recommend. So what I would recommend is completely closing Makerverse out. Just exit the application completely, reopening it and establishing the connection, and then you'll have the alarm again. So you'll want to unlock, and then you'll want to hit set home. And then after you set home, go ahead and go down in the lower left and launch the calibration piece. And then that'll open up a little modal, and it'll ask you for some measurements and everything. It'll walk you through. And that's on 1.0.6. We have a newer version, 1.1.2, that has a little bit more of a guided approach to calibration, but you may need to update the firmware on your board. So it'll be up to your discretion on if you want to take on those additional steps.
Okay. I would upgrade. I have this one. Wait, where am I? Let me change this one. So this one I leave on 106 just because this one's just been a stable, rock solid. This is my experimental one I use for experimenting stuff on. So this is 122, and then the other one over there is another one I've been trying to retweak with. But yeah, so if you have, it depends what you're doing. It sounds like if you want to play a lot, you may go with it. If you're starting from scratch, this is your first, and you're just now getting, because you said you start getting this thing set up today, right?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess that maybe the community may, other people have it. You may upgrade while you're at it. Since you're just starting, go ahead and upgrade your firmware and upgrade Makerverse.
Okay.
Just because that way you can tweak a little bit, and then later on you want to deal with it. Because once you get used to the workflow, you might as well be on 122 if you're getting set up now from the scratch. You know what I mean?
I completely agree with him, because if you're just gonna start off, might as well start off with the newer version and get used to that one. You know, and if you need any help, just send me a message to support@makermade.com, and I can send you all the links that you need.
So I'm in the X scaling, Y scaling, and Z scaling. That's the calibration you're talking about?
Correct. So that is the calibration for the 1.0.6.
Okay.
If you do the upgrade, it will wipe all of these settings, and you'll have to go through it again. So if you are wanting to do the upgrade, I would go ahead and go through that upgrade process first, and then come back to calibrate the machine, because updating the firmware on your control will erase any calibration settings that you have.
I will do that. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah,
What's
see, I'm
the system
calibrated
of-
yet. Especially if it's calibrated, yeah, it's worth it.
What's the system requirements for the computers that it runs?
It very like Windows 10. I mean, I've run this on a computer with 8 gigs of RAM. It's not very intensive at all. Makerverse itself is really just a G-code streamer. So it will run on pretty Windows 7. We've had some people have some struggles with, but pretty much any Windows 10 laptop. And I have a 2011 MacBook Air that runs Makerverse and runs it too. So as far
Yeah,
as
these are
any modern MacBook will be able to handle it. And we also have a Linux version. So if you go to makerverse.com, we actually have a Raspberry Pi build, and you can run this off of a 3B Plus or newer Raspberry Pi. So the computing power required for the software is very minimal.
Yeah, my wife's giving me trouble for smoking. Yeah, I'm running these on. This is with 4 gigs of RAM. It's I have a ton of workstations. I used to and so I have piles of off lease computers and stuff like that we get. The friends give me all the time. And so this is an old Core i3. It's probably a 10 or 12-year-old Core i3, or a second gen or third gen Core i3 with 4 gigs of RAM, and it's running beautifully. So I have Windows 10 on it. It's not because I just do most of the stuff I'm doing, like the design stuff, we're not doing on these machines. These machines are all just attached to the computers for.
Exactly. I was about to say, if you need a design machine, you need something with more, of course. Depends on what you're doing.
Like this one here is a 7th gen or 6th gen Core i7 with 8 gigs of RAM. So it's still, but it's an old scrap one. The only thing I did is I put SSDs and everything because SSDs are so cheap. I would not recommend going with the Spain disk. Other questions? I don't know if there's anything else I can help with. Oh, Chris, they were asking about the laser. I told them, guys, set up over here. I was doing some things last week, and everything went to hell. And so I started again this week, and then just been trying to keep up with things. But I didn't know what I could say or what I couldn't say, so I was like, I don't know. I showed him how you're thinking about mounting it and all that. So it just replaced the laser, but I didn't know.
If you have ran it and engraved anything, feel free to share it. It's very, we're taking an extremely open approach to it. The biggest thing that we're doing from a sales side is we want to make sure that we actually have a product that is ready, that an end user can easily mount to their M2 and go. Because ultimately there's nothing preventing someone from hooking a laser up. Obviously the M2 control board has a laser port and everything, as well as Makerverse can handle the M codes for laser. What we are trying to do from a product perspective is just, very similar to the M2. We want to streamline the process so the entry point is easier, and the usability is as high as possible, so that people don't feel, stuck in the mud if they get a laser and add it to the M2.
The nice thing is you can use Lightburn, which is really nice. So you can use Lightburn, and like if you're doing multiple layers, if you're going to be mixing where you're doing something with the router and then switching to the laser. Since the way Chris was thinking of doing the laser is actually really nice. It would be a drop-in system like that. And then the JTEC's really nice because it just magnets too. So it has really nice strong magnets, since you're not going to have a lot of vibration because you're not going to be running the router I'd probably recommend sticking with, I thought was sticking with Makerverse if you're going to be doing both. And the Makerverse does have the laser function in there, but that way you're not getting alignment issues if you switch back and forth between Lightburn and Makerverse for doing one for routing, one for laser. Because you have to make sure you're doing a lot of alignment and calibration there.
Is there a lifespan on lasers?
Yes.
Diode is going to be a little bit longer life than CO2. The biggest killer to a laser is running it at full power. So ultimately, 80% is kind of like the golden rule for max power on a laser to make it run as long as. And the diode lasers, I mean, you're talking like thousands of hours, whereas some of the CO2 lasers, if you take them too high on the power, I mean, I've seen people burn out a CO2 laser, in 20 hours of use. Just
training new people. Now, luckily, this is a 40 watt, so they're not super expensive. But yeah, and then the other problem too is if you're at a freezing weather, don't let them freeze because you got water running through glass tubes. So when it freezes, like your pipes burst and your lasers burst. But yeah. But no, they will. Just I'd never run our lasers. I'd never run them higher than. We'll never go higher than 85% usually. Sometimes I'll run them at 95 for rare occasions, but usually we do 85% power. With the diodes, I would do the same thing. I would keep them. These are designed to stay pretty cool, and they do a pretty good job. I powered these up, and like this will damn good heat sink. And then if you want a little bit more power to it, do an air assist. The air assist is going to get that ember hotter, so you'll get a little bit deeper cut if you do it. And so I'll usually use a compressor. And see down there, but there's a compressor down there. Anyways, I'll use my compressor to hook up a blower to it, and you can even make your own, or it's a fish tank. Buy a fish tank pump. You can buy it on Amazon cheap, and that works well too.
So it don't have to be a strong compressor.
Not at all.
No, actually, if you're gonna do it a lot, I would recommend. Let me see if I can walk this over here. I'll show you what I'd recommend.
I was thinking like an airbrush one.
Yeah,
you don't need to go to that.
That would work well. You just want to make sure whatever air assist that you use, you want to make sure that the pump is rated for 100%.
And I would, the airbrush ones though, if you run too long, you can burn them up. Those motors aren't designed to be run constantly. So I'll show you what. Let me see if I can clear my. I'll show you. Almost up. One of these days, we're going to build our own homemade elevator with a Maslow. It will definitely not be up to code, but so what I'm running for our air assist, which work really well, and they're about $60, $50, $60. It's big. This is an aquarium air pump. It's quiet, and it runs 24/7. Now I have smaller ones too that I run.
Yeah, you can get those pumps for like $40 on Amazon.
This is a tiny one, and they're super small. I mean, it's super quiet. You can even get, but you want something that gets pretty good air. Oh, there's some little bitty ones, but I wouldn't recommend that. But this one's tiny, and this is like $30-$40. And those work well. And this one runs 24/7. I never turn this thing off. It runs 24/7.
Do you have any engravings from running the laser on the M2?
I do. I don't know where it is right this second. Somewhere around here. I have one somewhere. See if I can find it. The guys were playing with it the other day. Let me see. Last week, because we were running around last week and shoving everything around, trying to get extension cords ran and other things. So let me figure out where it is. But yeah.
Hey, Chris, do you have tell me where a link is to the upgraded version of Maker or of
if you can see the chat, I'll put it in here right now.
Okay, thanks. I tried going to the site, but it just downloaded the original one I already had.
Yeah, we made a separate site for Makerverse, and that's where it'll have like the tutorials. You can follow all the releases and everything. So it's just makerverse.com. And then it has pretty generic upgrade instructions. But Mike's one of our support guys, and he is very well equipped to help you through that process if you get stuck.
Okay. Thank you.
Do we have any other? I don't know. I see Lauren and Steven. I haven't really heard from either of you, but I know I was off the call for a little while. I just want to make sure, just because we are at our 12:30 mark, I want to make sure that if anyone has any outstanding questions, that we do get those addressed before we wrap up.
No questions here. I just wanted to jump on. I've actually had the original version for 3 months now and had a blast with it, but I finally got on one of these Zoom calls and wanted to start kind of listening in just to steal from everybody else's ideas. It's pretty cool to see what everybody does.
Oh, absolutely. This is definitely a great weekly call to get on and get some insight from other people. So this will be a good resource as well as the Facebook group. There's a lot of great content on there as well.
Do y'all have an expected release time frame with laser?
Q2 of this year.
Okay. And I didn't actually see anything about it. Is there a warranty on any of this stuff or no?
1 year.
1 year?
Yeah. And honestly, I would be honest, like if you're at like 14 months, we're still going to take care of you. Ultimately, our goal is to keep you up and running. So we'll do that. And then also, even in the event that you exceed a warranty range, we do, we don't gouge on replacement parts. We're gonna make sure that you get what you need, because ultimately our primary goal is to make sure that you're able to make things with the kit that you bought from us. So we're going to do everything that we can. We've had times in the past where we've had someone that bought one, like 2 years ago, they needed a part, and we were like, hey, we can either sell you a new replacement part, or I've got just some random pieces laying around in the shop. I can give you a great deal on something like that from like a sample pile or something. So we're going to do everything that we can to take care of you. But as far as documented, we have a 1 year parts replacement warranty.
Okay.
And so my associate, I'm just an evangelist and a customer. Like I bought one 2 years ago, my first one 2 years ago. And for hobby stuff, then we kind of turned my hobby into a business because my wife made me get out of the house. And so, now, as you can see, I have now, she let me get warehouses full to get the stuff. But yeah, they've been excellent with me. That's why so for us, it's like there's a few companies that have been really good with equipment with us. Another one was Dremel. I burned one of my Dremel 3D printers up, and they took care of us really good. But honestly, the Maker Made has been better than any of the other companies, which has turned me into a huge evangelist. So that's why I love being part of this. I think it's great. And plus, they do a great job of kind of bringing makers together. So, but yeah, but as far as warranties go, we haven't really had any issues. I haven't had, and we've tweaked ours. I've bent some of the springs. I actually stretched some of the springs and stuff like that and broken a chain. But besides that, there's really not much I've had issues with. The motors have been good. Everything else, the Arduinos and the shields, they're pretty solid. So and they've been through hell and high water in our area. You can see my warehouses. If you want to stress test something, put it in our warehouse. We'll stress test it. We'll catch it on fire somehow. Can't find that laser burn, Chris. I don't know where it is.
Hey, you went too far from me, dude. So I might take you up on that offer.
Yeah,
I'm only about 5 hours from you.
I know. I actually was born in Houston, and I grew up over in Katy, but
I'm in South Texas. I'm in South Texas.
Come up one day. It'd be really cool.
Yeah. I got family in San Antonio. I got family in Austin too. So
that'd be wonderful. Yeah, come up and you can see kind of the steps here, play with it, and everything else. And I've got 22,000 square feet of stuff piled all over the place. So
awesome, man.
But yeah. Part of the reason why I can't find another part. We did. I think that's the one thing at home though, because it was something really small.
You got questions? All right. Any of y'all, if y'all need, of course, any support, just send us support at maker.com. All right. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
We'll see you. Feel free to join next Thursday. If you just want to hang out, you got a question, we'll be here.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right, guys. Hey, Chris, I'm gonna email you in a little while too, because there's stuff I need to catch up with you. I apologize. I had 2 weeks of craziness, so.
Oh, no, that's quite all right. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Bye.
Hey, guys.